All right, I'm going to sync this up real quick. All right, guys, I'm James O'Neill. Once again, you're here with the O'Neill Ops Podcast, and this is January 1st, 2020. We're going to bring in the new year, right? We've got a special guest with us today, a guy that we've worked with for over 10 years. I've got Keith Rissy as co-host with us, and John O'Neill, my brother, is co-host. This is the first time that he's been on here, and we're going to be asking and introducing Doug Melton, the CEO and owner of SRT ARMS. We've got some questions. I know I've had a lot of guys that have been very interested in us having him on because there's been a lot of interest in his suppressors over the past longer than the past few years. But he is a company that we've actually, that I kind of sorted through and picked out at the, not at the very beginning, but after we got extensive use with a lot of different suppressors in the field. And you'll hear me say this on a lot of videos, but I don't have a sound meter. I don't try to meter cans next to each other. I listen for a specific tone. For us in the field hunting and shooting and actually killing coyotes or big game or whatever it is that we're doing, a certain tone is really intriguing and really what we're after. And I can tell you the exact day, what we were doing, what we were shooting, what other suppressors we were shooting when I heard the Shadow XL-TI fire from quartering behind me. And Keith, I think John was shooting it. You were using an AAC Cyclone. I was using a YHM QD, Phantom. And you could tell right off the bat when John fired, we were shooting at 1,000 yards. We both looked at each other like, dude, that sounds good. That's got a different tone. And we're going to look a little bit more into those suppressors.
Well, just like we say before, I mean, there's a reason we run what we run. It applies to the cans as well. I mean, there's a reason we run these cans and why it's at the top of our list.
And I'm jacked about this interview with Doug because he's been around here. And let's just introduce Doug right now. Doug, we're humbled to have you, working with us. You have an awesome product, almost superior in my mind compared to what's out there. But I would like to have you introduce yourself and kind of give us an explanation, a detailed explanation on kind of how, why, and when you've got started, how long you've been going, what SRT ARMS is, and what it is exactly that you do and you plan on doing.
Okay, are you ready for me, James?
Yep, we're going, Doug. Go for it.
Okay, well, Happy New Year, guys. Anyway, this is Doug Melton, president of SRT ARMS. As far as how I got in the suppressor business, I actually designed my first suppressor when I was about 14, but it was only on paper because I had no way to build it. 1996 was my first suppressor I built on a Form 1, and then I incorporated 2 years later and started building them commercially. We had some interesting designs I wanted to try, and they turned out pretty good, and we refined them, and they turned out to be quite superior. I'd never taken apart anybody else's suppressor, and I've never even really looked inside them, so I had no preconceived notions on how to build them. I wasn't swayed by other people's designs. We just worked on our own design and improved it, and bought our sound meters, started testing them, and they turned out to be just as good or better than everybody else's, and we went into business selling suppressors.
And what did you? I mean, what's SRT ARMS? What's it stand for?
Sonic Research Technologies.
What was that? You cut out a little bit.
Sonic Research Technologies.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, because we originally I started doing this as experimentation, and then got into commercially, it was originally, like I said, it was experimental use, and then we started producing product. We started with the 22s, Integral 22s, the Integral Mark II at that time, and the Integral 1022 and Integral 7722, and then went into 22 muzzle suppressors, and then 223 and 30 caliber muzzle suppressors, and the muzzle suppressors became a very big part of our market because it was a very good can. There's more to just building suppressor than making it quiet, which of course is very important, but it's also got to be accurate. And there's a lot of bad ways to build a suppressor where you have, the first shot will go someplace else for the rest than the rest of them do, because there's higher pressure during the first shot because of the oxygen burning in the suppressor. Or you have to, in some cases, suppressors, you have to clock them a certain way because they'll send a bullet off to the left or the right or up or down, depending on how the can is oriented on the end of the barrel. But ours do not require any clocking, and we do not have cold first shot POI shift problems.
That's a huge part, and that's one of the key features. I'm glad you brought that up. That's awesome info for these guys that are listening, because that is one of the first things that we look at before even, sure, sound suppression is intriguing, but if you have a quiet first round that's 3, 4, 5 inches off, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, exactly. If that first round misses, what
good is it? Exactly. Who cares if it's quiet? So that's what intrigued us. The sound first, obviously, I'm not going to lie, but then we went into what we do in testing groups, and we found that I've had numerous suppressors that have had first round flyers. Like Doug was saying, that first shot, those gases fill up that can. There's more pressure. It's a little bit different. His design is, they're all in the same hole. The first shot, the follow-up shots fall within the first shot if your rifle shoots.
We find ourselves when we're grouping a rifle or finding a load for a rifle, we make sure there's an SRT can on that rifle because of the accuracy.
Exactly, because that the can's going to do what it does.
Right.
We just want to make sure that the rifle and our loads are going to do what we want them to do. But that's awesome, Doug. There's a couple of questions that I was going to ask you. I know this go back to your integrals. I've got a couple that I should actually do another review. I did that Mark III government model review for you. Fill some guys in on some of the work that you've done for contracts for the government on those that if you can, if you can do that, or if you're willing to share with us a little bit of that, some of the stuff you've done, had contracts, integrals.
Oh, sure. First of all, you did mention that government model, that Mark III Mod 0 integrally suppressed Ruger Mark III pistol. A government agency that I'm not allowed to name, but I can say that they are a government agency, approached us in 2013 saying, we need to replace our integrally suppressed pistols. We're looking for the best ones out there, and they said, we want to build the quietest 22 Ruger Mark III you can, shooting CCI Mini-Mag 40 grain bullets. And I said, okay. So they bought 3. We did some extensive testing to optimize it for the CCI 40 grain Mini-Mag. And they did their testing. They bought 3 pistols from half a dozen other outfits. And then they had 3 groups evaluating the pistols, and we were the unanimous choice of all 3 groups. They said nobody else's gun even came close. Nobody's in the same ballpark. We're going with yours. So in 2014, we got that contract for several dozen suppressed Mark III pistols. We filled that. They were very happy with them. We've also sold a lot of suppressed guns, 22 pistols, 22 rifles, and 44 rifles to USDA wildlife. They're using for animal control and taking different animals for testing or disease. And they have to do it quietly because they're in often populated areas. So we've got sold a lot of integrals to wildlife services, including the U.S. Forest Service and National Park Service and USDA.
That's really neat. I've talked with you about that before, and if you guys aren't familiar with integrally suppressed firearms, take a look at it. You make sure and check out our YouTube channel. You guys can sort through our reviews and find that those guns are ridiculous quiet. If you want to see the epitome of a Hollywood quiet handgun,
Yeah, movie quiet.
that's how bad it is. I mean, you could literally, we could be in this room and go shoot 2 feet from the floor and you would barely hear it. That's not exaggerating. It's amazing what you do with integrals and even, like I said, the tone that you get with your centerfire cans as well. Let's go into a little bit of detail here, like integral versus muzzle. I mean, what's your preference, Doug? What do you like to do? If guys are going to call, or you're going to do, does it bother you to do either one because you're the manufacturer, you design these things. What do you prefer to build? What do you have more fun doing?
Well, the muzzle cans are obviously easier to build because they're, mass produced type, the parts are all, CNC machined and then assembled, and they're just a little bit of minor machining for fitting, and they go out the door. The integrals, of course, are all, they use the same internal parts, but then we have to machine the rifle back by the receiver, do barrel trimming, open up the stocks for the integrals. Integrals are quieter. They're shorter. They can be heavier. They can be lighter depending on what the material is. We do the integral center fires, like, I've done, 300 Win Mag integrals and 223 integrals and 22 250 and 308s and everything in between. And they're 3 or 4 decibels quieter than the best muzzle can out there. And, some people that's very important. Of course, you still hear the supersonic crack, but there's the muzzle signature is almost non-existent. Muzzle cans, you can switch from rifle to rifle to rifle, and integral is very dedicated. We do a lot of 77-44 integrals on the 44 Magnum cartridge, with most people shooting subsonic Magnum loads, 300 grains, hog hunting down in the southeast, because they can, kill half a dozen or a dozen pigs before the rest of them figure out something wrong is going on. And it's the difference in a muzzle can between a integral and a muzzle can on a 44. The decibel difference is huge. It's about 15 decibels difference, which is quite a bit.
Yeah, it is. Hey, that brings up another topic. I mean, a lot of guys know what suppressors are. Give us an idea on numbers here, so that, I mean, we know what they are, but from you, the credentials mean a lot more. A standard rifle gunshot at the muzzle brings to the table how many decibels, and then what would you say some of your suppressors reduce those decibels to?
Oh, I can answer that exactly. We use, with just a little bit of background, there's only a couple sound meters that are acceptable for measuring gunshots, and one of them is the Larson Davis Labs 800B with a 1/4-inch condenser microphone. OSHA says gunshots have to be 140 decibels or less to not wear hearing protection. 140 decibels is, a lot for continuous noise, but for gunshot, it doesn't seem so much. But anyway, to go to your question, an unsuppressed 308 rifle is about 166 decibels. An unsuppressed 223 rifle is about 164 to 165, depending on barrel length. Our suppressed Shadow XL or XLTI on a 308 is about 132, 133 decibels, maybe 134 on a 16-inch barrel. It does depend on barrel length. Difference between a 16-inch barrel and a 20-inch barrel is about 2 decibels. Our suppressed 223 is about 131 decibels. They're 44 suppressed. The integral, depending on the bullet weight, is anywhere between 116 and 127. The integrally suppressed Ruger Mark III is dependent about 114 to 116, depending on which model. Integrally suppressed bolt action rifle is about 109 decibels.
Wow.
The sound of a hammer falling on an empty chamber is 107 decibels. and a Daisy BB gun is about 103 decibels.
That's
that puts
crazy.
it into perspective right there.
Yeah,
That'll give you guys an idea of what's going on with these SRT cans. That'll give you a very accurate representation of a lot of guys want to know why we use them and what we use them for, and that'll paint you a picture real quick. When you said something about barrel length, that's another question I answer for a lot of guys, but there's a lot of guys out there that are, you see this now. Earlier on, you didn't really see it, but nowadays you're seeing the ergonomics, the overall length, the compactness of these rifles. So the maneuverability, in and out of, whether it's a stock pack, in and out of your scabbard, just being able to walk through, trees, bushes, and not have it hang up, even if it's slung around your shoulder. These guys are we've been doing it a long time, but cutting your barrel down. A lot of guys have a lot of questions on, and they should, rightfully so. What is my safe barrel length for, say, a Magnum rifle? A guy wants to cut it down. What's your, on Magnum rifles, a 300 Win Mag, say, or even a 7mm Remington mag, if a guy wanted to cut it down and use one of your cans, what would we be looking at for a safe overall length, or a safe barrel length, I should say?
I'll answer a little bit more to that question. 308, 16 is fine. 18 is fine too. Some people like a little bit of extra velocity, but I do want to bring up quickly that inside a suppressor, they have something called its freeboard boost, because you've got a bullet that's going through, tight apertures with a lot of pressure behind it, but there's no drag from rifle lands on it. So you actually pick up a velocity in a suppressor. So you may lose a couple hundred feet per second cutting a rifle down from 24 to 20 or 18 inches, but you pick up 100 of that back inside the suppressor. So it's not as bad as you would think. But as far as minimum length, 16 and a half on a 308. For Magnums, I wouldn't go below 18. You start over pressuring the can below that. 20 is probably a little bit safer, but there's no point in having a 22 or 24 or 26 inch barrel for a number of reasons. Number one, the gun is too long then, but also you're hanging a weight out on the end of this spindly barrel, and the longer your barrel, the more point of impact shift you're going to have with the suppressor on it versus unsuppressed, because you're altering the recoil of the rifle, because the recoil starts the minute the bullet starts leaving the case mouth, and as it goes down the barrel, the rifle wants to rise due to that recoil, and the weight on the end of the suppressor on the barrel, reduces that rise. So you'll find your point of impact shift with our suppressors is always pretty much straight down, and the longer the barrel, the more POI shift you have, because you've got more barrel whip and a longer cantilever arm out there. So you want to keep it as compact as possible. Heavier barrels have less POI shift than skinnier barrels do, but the POI shift is repeatable. You take the can off, and let's say you're zeroed at 100 yards without a can. You put the can on, you're gonna have a POI shift down 2 or 3 inches. You take the can off, it goes back to zero with unsuppressed. You could put the can back on, it drops back to the same place. As long as you have it reasonably tightened the same amount, you're not going to have differences that affect your accuracy from hunt to hunt. You just write down your dope, different ranges, and what your POI shift is, and you can figure it out.
And that's exactly what we tell guys. I mean, the story of the past 10 years is these guys see, well, why do you run a short, heavy contoured barrel? It eliminates any kind of impact shift when you're hanging a weight off the end of it. But then at the same time, I tell guys, I'm hunting with the suppressor. We're zeroing with the suppressor on. We're building our load data to that weapon system with the can. There's no reason to shoot without it, unless
right.
for any reason, if the overall length is too long, you need to break the system down to get to where you're going and then reassemble it. And then, you don't have to worry, like you said, if you torque it, most of the time you just hand tighten it, you're going to have the same impact shift as it was, before you took it off. But,
right.
That's a good, that's a lead that led us right into one of my other questions. So that's a perfect answer. That's a lot of information for guys out there. This is real intriguing for a lot of guys. On your, when we're talking about barrel length, what's your recommendation on, say, the smaller calibers that are non-Magnum? You know, you got a 22 250, or say even a, you know, like now they're coming out, we've got the 22 Creed that's jumping these rounds about 200 to 300 feet per second faster than a 250. Some of these guys are asking, cutting their barrels down. What's your recommendation on that? On a higher velocity 6mm that's not a Magnum, or a higher velocity 22 224 caliber, I should say, too. That's
I'm going to answer that in a couple of parts. It depends on how much you're going to be moving around with the gun. If you're just going to be pretty much stationary, I would not cut the barrel down as much as if you're going to be, you know, having it slung over your shoulder walking through the brush. But generally, I wouldn't go much below 20 on those higher velocity guns. You're not going to hurt the suppressor, but you do start, you know, part of the reason for those particular rounds is the higher velocity, and you don't want to, you know, get rid of all your velocity by cutting the barrel too short. So if you're taking, you know, 4 or 6 inches off it from a 24, 26 down to 20, you're not really hurting it. If you go to 16, yeah, you are. So I wouldn't go below 20 on any of those higher velocity rounds.
I got you. Which sometimes we do, sometimes we don't.
And we've done below even 18, and we noticed that we lose, you know.
It's a given.
Yeah.
Yeah, that velocity. For every inch you cut off, they're looking at 25 to 30 feet per second decrease. But with some of the optics that we're running, you can basically counter that pretty quickly, like for holdover.
Right. Doug, with your cans being thread on, all your cans are thread on. What's your, I mean, why thread on over the quick detach?
Well, first of all, most quick detaches really aren't that quick detach.
Sure.
They, you know, it takes, you know, 5 or 6 seconds to screw a thread on can versus, you know, 2 or 3 seconds to, you know, put a quick detach on. A quick detach it's longer, it's heavier, and it actually gives you a chance for inaccuracy. It doesn't necessarily mean every QD is inaccurate, but if you got any little wiggle or slop in there, and you do need some wiggle or slop because otherwise you can't get it on and off once it's carboned up. Having something rattling around on the end of your barrel is not conducive to accuracy. Most people probably wouldn't notice it, but, you know, there's a lot of our customers that do.
Like us.
So it's, you know, we just kind of stick with the thread on. The real advantage to a QD that has a muzzle device on it, it's got a built-in thread protector on the end that sometimes acts as a muzzle brake, sometimes doesn't, sometimes acts as a flash hider, sometimes it doesn't. But that's really the advantage that I can see of it. But the disadvantages outweigh that little bit of advantage in my mind.
Right. And that's kind of what we thought too.
Yeah.
I just wanted to hear it from you, you know.
But while you're on the topic of thread pitches, why are there different thread pitches like that? Why can't everything just be a standard?
Well, a lot of it depends on the barrel thickness that came from the factory. I always say use the biggest thread you can possibly put on there, but you know, it's hard to put a 5/8 inch thread on a 9/16 inch diameter barrel. It can be done, and I've done it, but it's a lot of work. So, you know, the standard for the 223 was always a 1/2 by 28 because that's what the flash hiders are threaded at. But if somebody's got a hunting rifle in 223 or 222, 250, and it's got a barrel that's, you know, 650 or 700 or 750 diameter at the muzzle, I'd say put a 5/8 24 thread on it rather than a 1/2 inch thread, because you've got the meat to work with. You only use a smaller thread if that's all the barrel will handle.
And to jump in real quick, that is the way I explain what you do is kind of the way I explain a custom gunsmith, you know, a custom rifle, because that's exactly what we do. You're able to cater to guys that want, how many suppressors, how many vapors have we done for guys that want 5/8 by 24? A lot.
Yeah, I mean, a lot. Yeah.
And that's a really good, you know, note, because there's guys that Gunworks, the 22 250 that we got from them last year, we're running a 5/8 by 24 vapor on it because that's their standard thread pitch for all their rifles, no matter what the 22 caliber or all the way up to their 338s. So it's nice to be able, and most firearms companies, or I should say suppressor manufacturers, it's just a factory built suppressor that you're not getting around being able to customize it to cater to your specific rifle. You have to buy that can that's threaded for your rifle, which is
right. And one advantage too. Let's say, and you can use a can on a subcaliber gun, like you can use a 30 caliber suppressor on a 223 without any problem at all. It's longer than a 223 can, it's heavier than a 223 can, but yeah, you can use it on a 223. And if the 30 cans are always threaded 5/8 24, unless it's something special is ordered. But we offer adapters that screw in the back bushing to reduce it to half 28 if somebody wants to put it on their AR-15. Or they have a smaller gun like a 22-250 that's threaded at 1/2 by 28. So, bigger is often better because it gives you some more options. You'd never want to put a small 1/2-inch thread on a 30 caliber because there's not enough meat that the barrel gets too thin at the muzzle. So the bigger thread is always better if you can do it.
And with that thread, with that in the picture, the thread pitch, what's your thoughts on regarding the calibers that we're talking about here? What's your thoughts on, and I think you and I might have a little bit of maybe disagreement here, maybe. The caliber specific versus one can for all of them. You got a designated 2.2. What I tell guys, and we'll be honest here, I don't care. You know more, you meter more stuff. I like a designated weapon system for what I'm doing. If I'm going to build,
I do too.
So what's your?
I do too. But and but not everybody can afford half a dozen suppressors, so they. You will move a can from to gun to gun to gun. So that's why we offer that option. But I agree, having a dedicated suppressor to a dedicated rifle is your best bet, especially if you're looking for long range accuracy.
So is that more accurate then, or is that more quiet, or what's your overall? I mean, why caliber specific? More accuracy.
Well, it's not so much the accuracy. When you have a can that's dedicated to a rifle, it's put on there and pretty much kept on there. So it's on at the same torque. Now, if you take it on and off with a torque wrench, you're very good at retightening each time and judging the correct torque. You're going to get the same results. But leaving the can on there is it gives you the most repeatability.
Right.
I always tell people put them on with Teflon tape because that way it keeps them from loosening during firing.
Yep. And
it keeps the threads clean and allows you to get it off later without getting a lot of carbon buildup in there. Sure. When you shoot subcaliber, typically it's a little more complex here. Smaller calibers usually have lower powder loads. Sometimes they don't. When you're putting a smaller bullet through a bigger hole, like a 22 bullet through a 30 caliber hole, there's more room for the gas to rush around the sides of the bullet as the bullet passes through the baffles. And in some cases, if you have an equal powder load, it would probably be louder with a 22 bullet and a 30 caliber can, but most 22 bullets use less powder, so you don't really lose anything in suppression-wise. You're just giving up some length and weight because, like I mentioned before, the smaller bore cans are shorter than the longer, 300 or 338 cans are.
Exactly. So like we've got a 9.3 inch long 1.5 OD Shadow XL TI that's bored 30 cal, and then we're running one of our 224 Vapors that's 8 inches long, same outside diameter. You get a little over an inch of internal volume on the Shadow XL TI. The balance there is like you're saying. So we're basically, I mean, what I tell guys is there's a compromise there. They may sound close to the same, but being caliber specific, you're a little bit lighter, you're a little bit shorter, you're built for that.
Exactly.
So there's, but I got you. That's what I usually tell guys. It's there's a little bit of give and take there, but like you said, you're 100% right. a lot of guys aren't in our boat, where we're very fortunate to be able to get our hands on numerous makes, models, and manufacturers and run them. And guys have to, they've got a budget. They can only afford one, so they buy one can to rule all of their weapons.
Right.
You were talking about getting a spike in muzzle velocity. So is there a measurable difference in shooting like a 224 through a 30 cal can as opposed to a 224 through a designated can for as far as velocity spikes concerned?
I've never measured the difference. I would guess there's going to be, if I just had to pull a number out of my back pocket, I'd say if you're going to get an 85 foot per second freeboard boost of let me just not try to speculate on that. I've never measured it, so
sure,
I don't want to.
That's something that we could
say something that's wrong. Yeah,
we could hammer something out.
Yeah, that'd be worth testing. I never thought about testing for that.
And when I asked you about caliber specific cans, you mentioned repeatability. So what's your thoughts on the cans that they take apart and clean? I mean, I kind of answered my question, but if you explain that, see what your thoughts are on that.
Like user, like your cans, Doug, are serviceable by you,
right?
But what Keith's probably talking about is the user serviceability cans.
They tell you how to clean. Take your can apart every 100 shots and clean it. And what's your thoughts on that?
And torque it back together as close to as you can as the last time you did it.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and obviously that's part of it. That's one reason people go with the monocores. I don't like monocores because they don't suppress very well.
Break it down. Go to the extent on that, because I've got freaking raked from guys that manufacture those, and I'm just telling the truth. I don't like to do that online, but there's guys that are asking legit info about legit. And
on
I'm
the
like,
monocore.
Yeah, on all, like, hey, a serviceable monocore versus a machined or cast baffle stack.
Okay, I'll try to answer all of that without getting too long-winded here.
Sure.
You're going to get the best suppression with a assembled baffle stack, just because you cannot machine the complexities into a monocore that you can by putting individual discrete baffles together. We seal our suppressors because it's, unless you've got the tools to take them apart and properly tighten them down, if you don't tighten enough, they're going to rattle when you put it back together, and it's going to ruin your accuracy. Now, a take-apart can, you do have to take apart fairly regularly, otherwise it becomes a non-take-apart can because they carbon up. It's, like I said, 100 rounds, you put 200, 300 rounds through a take-apart can, it's probably permanently sealed unless you send it to the factory or have a gunsmith take it apart for you. It's not like unscrewing a cap off an aspirin bottle after the threads are all carboned up. It's, you got to have a special jig to hold the round suppressor, and then the special tools to get the end caps off. So that's why we do seal ours, because baffle orientation is important too. Because again, we don't if you put the baffles back in the wrong orientation, you are going to change your point of impact shift, because there's actually some science that goes into this on how our baffles are arranged going into the suppressor. And if you put them in differently, you're going to get a potentially, negative effect on your POI shift. So it's just safer and better to keep it sealed. Like I said, in all but the most extreme cases, we can get them apart and, clean them for the customer. There's, of course, a charge. We usually put new baffles in there because it's cheaper to put new baffles in than spend 4 hours trying to chip carbon off the old ones.
That's good info. So to go into a little more detail, 2 questions. How many, which you and I have discussed a lot of times, clean centerfire jacketed rounds? How many we get guys that just flat out get butt hurt because they and rightfully so, to an extent, with regards to precision. Guys are weighing their suppressors and they're seeing that they're getting heavier over the round count, and then they are seeing a point of impact shift eventually, which I would imagine would be very minute because you're slowly, gradually getting that buildup. But then you go to clean it, and then you're back to a lighter can, and you basically rework whether it's your loads or whether it's your zero, which is no big deal. But how many rounds do you think, from your experience, would you be concerned with a center fire, high velocity cartridge with shooting jacketed bullets as clean as you could before you should even be concerned about sending your can in to have it broke down and cleaned?
A lot of it depends on what caliber you're shooting in the powder and the barrel length. A 223 has a very hot burning powder, and they really don't clog up with unburned powder. Obviously, if people are hand loading, can find powder that will clog it up over time. With factory ammo, I've never really seen a 223 can clogged up. I don't think you're going to do much on the 222-50 because it's a pretty potent round. It's got the same high pressure, high temperature gases. 30 calibers with slower bullets will start clogging up, and I've seen suppressors after between 8 and 8,000 and 15,000 rounds that are pretty full of crud. So yeah, it is something that happens. But one thing that people don't think about is you start putting 10,000 rounds through a rifle. How many barrels are you going to go through in that that time? So it's they expect the can to last for 100,000 rounds, but they don't mind changing barrels every 1,000 rounds, to keep their accuracy up.
Exactly. That's an awesome point. Guys get so hell-bent on, I don't want to have to buy new internals or but they'll go, you're going to smoke your barrel out 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 10 times before you even have to really worry about that. And you're replacing 3 or 4 or however many barrels before you even get to that point.
So is there a point where that carbon buildup is actually helps as a sound suppression?
I was going to ask that. Exactly. Good question. Like since you asked it, a new can versus a can that has X amount of rounds down it that's kind of sealed up and kind of coated a little bit.
Your suppressor does get quieter after it's shot for a while, and then after several thousand rounds, it's going to start getting louder again because just volume's starting to be taken up again in it. Like I said, I've never really seen that on a 223, but I've seen it on 30 calibers. I've also mostly seen it on people that are running really hot loads with a lot of powder that's dirty and it doesn't really fully burn. It's unburned powder is your biggest bugaboo for dirtying up a can. So overpressuring, super hot loads can increase the frequency of having to have it cleaned, but that's really powder specific, and I don't have enough information to say what's good and what's bad.
And there's always newer, different stuff coming out all the time. I mean, there's a new powder that just
6.5 stay ball. Good luck staying on top of that. No one testing every powder every time it comes out.
You can't do that. It's just a tough deal.
Right.
I've got a question. There's always, and it seems like there's newer designs coming out, newer components, a couple different questions.
Technology or something.
Yep. There's a couple questions that I want to go into here, like materials. Okay. You got stainless steel versus titanium, basically in your higher velocity, your more pressured cartridges. And what's your take on, some of the advantages versus disadvantages? Of course, titanium's lighter. They may have a different tone because of the materials. Is there any advantages that guys should know about paying a little bit more for titanium versus stainless steel over the weight reduction is about it?
The weight reduction, it's your weight reduction POI shift. If you have a barrel that's 24 inches long and you have a 2-pound suppressor on the end, it's probably going to have twice the POI shift that having a 24-inch barrel with a 1-pound suppressor on the end has. And of course, with our design, it's always straight down. So, with a titanium can, let's 100 yards, you're getting a POI shift of an inch or inch and a half. With a stainless can that weighs twice as much, you're probably going to have twice as much POI shift. And of course, it's repeatable, so it's not saying the stainless can is bad. It's just more POI shift. If you're shooting from a bench, it doesn't matter on the weight. If you're humping it through the woods or shooting offhand, it sure does. Because it's, as you know, rifle balance is important for getting good shots on the fly.
Oh yeah. What about your let's say there's stellite, there's Inconel that a lot of guys are using for the blast baffle. Are you familiar with the stellite?
Yeah, I'm familiar. I'm a chemical engineer by background. Stellite is used in high pressure steam valves on the seats to keep the superheated steam from eroding the valve seats, and it's a very good material. We use Inconel 718 on our blast baffles on the higher velocities, like the 22 250s and some of the 6 millimeters and the 223s. We've not found it to be a problem with the 30 caliber cans. We do not use any titanium in the blast baffle. It's either a 316 stainless steel or 17.4 pH or an Inconel in the blast baffle, because it gets all those high pressure plasma gases coming out of the muzzle, and titanium sparks and erodes badly. So titanium is not a good choice for your blast baffle. That's why we use, in our titanium cans, the blast baffle is always stainless or stainless Inconel. For that reason, and the rest of the baffles will be titanium. Obviously, in a stainless can, they're all stainless, but except for 223, 2250, even a stainless can would get an Inconel blast baffle.
So on your cans, the tube is made out of, and what are how detailed do you want to go into? How detailed can you go into, or are you willing to go into part of the manufacturing process? Because I'll tell you what, man, I've had a lot of guys. I've metered your cans with certain manufacturers, and they won't. I mean, I've had them meter a can of theirs that's been fired, I think he said 20,000 times, compared to a brand new one of yours, and yours was very competitive with it. And
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it was brand spanking new. And you can't compare. That's like comparing apples to oranges. I've went into a manufacturer's shop, took the can that's sitting right here in front of us on our table, the Hurricane XLTI, and I'm not going to name any names, but we went into the back room and he had a 5-gallon bucket halfway full of sand. And they had, well, here's the cans that we're making. And I had one because I was over at our gunsmiths and brought it in there. I'm like, check this one out. So they're like, let's go in the back room and test them. We shot his, and he's like, every other can that we've tried to shoot in here, it'll make your ears ring. We used Hurricane XLTI, in the back room. And he kind of looked, he's like, mind if we take a bore scope and look inside of that? And I'm like, are you going to, I'm not kidding. I'm not. And he did. I'm like, I'm not going to be able to stop you. I could say no, but
he was almost mad about it.
They're going to get their hands on those and cut them apart or scrutinize the hell out of them to kind of see what the deal was. And he's like, oh, no. What do you do? Like, do you want to go into detail, or would you rather not on the process of manufacturing the internals of your cans?
Well, the baffles are investment cast, which is a lost wax method, except for the Inconel parts, which are machined. But that's the investment casting. It allows you to cast very complex shapes that there's no possible way you can machine them. And that's we have those cast in titanium and stainless.
That's your secret. Secret's out, Doug. See, everybody's going to hear this.
No, that's okay. They can look at it and they can figure out how it's made. I've never made a secret of having cast baffles. It's a way to make a very complex baffle that you can't possibly machine economically. I suppose it's possible you could 3D print them, but I looked into 3D printing costs, and it was not economically feasible. Maybe it might be in the future, but not right now. So it's basically the baffles, which spacers in between them stuffed inside of a tube. We use grade 9 titanium, which is aircraft grade titanium. It's not cheap crap. It's not grade 2 or 5 It's good quality aircraft titanium, and it's a good material. On the stainless suppressors, they're made with 316 stainless outer tubes and 304 stainless spacers and 316 baffles. Same with the end caps, so they're very erosion resistant and corrosion resistant. Can't think of too much else to say about it other than that. It's there's a lot of features on our baffles that, if you know what you're looking for, you would pick up on it. If you don't, you'd look at it and not even notice some of the little things that make the baffles work so well.
So are you seeing a difference in, like, real quick, are you seeing any kind of a difference in strength, a cast piece versus, say, a machined piece?
No.
There's nothing to be
no.
known.
Nothing. I've never noticed any difference on it. They both, the cast material has the same yield strength and tensile strength as a piece machined out of bar stock.
That's awesome. So you're just getting more elaborate's what you're doing. You're being able to get certain features into your internals that you can't by machining it.
Correct.
But on that note, how do you come up with a design for a baffle like that? Is it a trial and error thing, or is there some kind of engineering thinking that you can get behind it?
There's some engineering, but there's also a lot of black art. There's people that claim to be fluid modeling this stuff. And,
I was just going to say fluid dynamics.
But I haven't seen any of their stuff that was ever really about any of that good. So it tells me that their math is wrong, or their premise is wrong, or it just doesn't work. There's a lot of black art involved, and playing with it, you'll find things that work, and you make a note of them, and you find things that don't work, and you make a note of them. And when you're developing a suppressor, we'll go out and try 8 or 10 or 15 or 30 different iterations of the suppressor, and make a note of what change. We'll run 10 rounds, meter them, write it down, and you'll notice, well, this change gained us 1 decibel. Okay, that's a good change. Or this change lost us a half decibel. That's a bad change. But if you pick up a half decibel here and a decibel there, and another half decibel here and a 3/4 of a decibel there, after a while you've quieted the can down, 5 or 6 or 7 decibels from where you originally started. And that's how you make as quiet suppressor is a lot of trial and error and testing. And you need the right sound meter to do that, because if you don't have the right sound meter, you can't pick up that half decibel difference.
And another sound meter that's capable of doing this is the Brulin Car 2209 with a 1/4 inch compression mic. Am I right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Do you guys have anything?
The first can you built when you were 14, did you ever meter that?
And that was just a design drawing.
Okay.
Yeah, that was
just on paper.
That was just a design drawing.
Yeah. Okay.
And I remember when I designed it, and it actually would have worked, but probably not super well.
Sure.
But it was kind of designed based on what I thought I could possibly build.
Right.
That's before I knew about the legalities of suppressors and
right.
all that stuff. And then I didn't really get into it again until later. But yeah, and part of your earlier question about designing these things in fluid dynamics is, yes, I've got a background in chemical engineering, and part of what an engineer does is try to reduce turbulence and increase flow through things, and when you learn what increases flow, you also learn what decreases flow, and what you're trying to do is decrease your flow through a suppressor and slow it down as much as possible. So you're trying to do the opposite thing of what they do in industry, and that helps as background too.
That's that. You know what? That almost leads us right into kind of what I was thinking. You probably have to get going. I would be interested in. I don't care how long these podcasts go. I'd make them 2 hours long and not even care. But I was with leading into this. Are you thinking? Like, we had an engineer out here from FLIR, and I'm really intrigued with guys of this kind of mindset. You know, we work with Aaron Davidson at Gunworks. He's an engineer. What you do, you have a different kind of brain, is what I call it. I'm the grunt. I'm the dumb nut that takes your guys' equipment and hammers the piss out of it in the field and sees what I like and what I don't. But with that said, when I was talking to the engineer from FLIR, you know, I'm like, is there anything that's coming out that is going to be substantially better than what we're currently running with the equipment? I could go into detail on that. And he's like, you know what, man, right now, he goes, it's kind of on the verge of getting crazy, because in the thermal industry, what they're going to start doing is, he's like, well, they're not going to start, but they've got like a cryo-cooled core that will allow these thermal units to basically film or record or see visually in HD. And he was showing me some footage of it. I'm like, this is insane. I mean, they're taking the core down to like 230 degrees below zero to keep the unit functional. So what I'm getting at is, are you seeing, I mean, I tell guys, compound bows, there's a certain limit there. You got an IBO speed that's going to get you 350 feet per second, maybe 390 rated, or is what they're saying or advertising. But when you go chrono that, it ain't going to be much more than that. There's a limit there. Is there any kind of new technology in the suppressor industry? Everybody's coming out with a new can every year with a different tube on it. And I noticed you're doing the same thing. Don't fix it if it's not broke. Is there anything that's going to be coming out in the near future that you can see that is going to be
change the game, for say,
revolutionary,
right,
if you will? Like, the only thing I can think of is if you could somehow mask the sonic crack of the bullet. But is there anything with your mindset, with your knowledge in the industry?
Nothing that it's, you know, there's some things that I'm not going to discuss, but they've got drawbacks that make them not commercially viable, although they're very good for military applications. But I don't see anything real revolutionary. And again, you mentioned the supersonic crack of the bullet. The super sound signature of a 30 caliber bullet going through the air is about 129 decibels. That's 128 for a 223 bullet. So that's really the quietest you make it. You know, and
yep,
you know the sound signature of our Hurricane XL TI on a 223 is 129, 130. We're metering bullet crack. You know, there's, if you can knock the muzzle, you know, if you knock the muzzle down another 5 dB, it's not going to sound any quieter because the bullet's the loudest thing you hear.
So the only thing you can do is go subsonic. That's it.
Right. You know, obviously better designs allow you to shorten up suppressors, and I see people offering short suppressors, but you put a sound meter on them and they meter terribly.
We've done it. You can't, it makes your ears ring. I mean, yeah.
You know, and a lot of what I see now is people are coming up with designs. It's all cosmetic stuff that looks cool, but it's, in some cases, it makes the suppressors louder with these convoluted end caps on them that, you know, have this fancy machining. They don't do anything for the sound signatures. They look fancier, and you know, we're just basically we're offering performance. We're not trying to, you know, come out with the latest design trend.
I respect that. I mean, that's awesome. That's really cool, I think. And nothing against the guys that come out with something every other year with an external design change, or maybe make another mark on the baffle with their machine. But that's awesome to see somebody like you that's been around this long, that is, you know, that has this much knowledge in it and know this much and go from there. That's awesome.
Right. Yeah. And you mentioned earlier, you know, I do have to go here. We've got some people coming over, so we'll probably have to wrap this up here in the next, few seconds.
No, that's awesome. I think, dude, Doug, you answered everything that we were more. So, I mean, you led right into some of the questions that we had and answered more than what I was even going to get into. And I know this is there's a lot of guys that were really interested in hearing this podcast, and there's not a lot of guys out there that go into detail on stuff like this. So we really appreciate it. And we'd like to get you on again. And I'm going to get some feedback from the guys that listen to us. and we'll make sure and see, you know, if there's more questions from other
Sure.
guys, we'll see if we can't do a follow-up call with you.
Sure. You know, get some questions and I'll see what I can answer for you.
Okay. Awesome, Doug. Well, I appreciate it, man. And have a happy new year, and we're bringing it in the right way. Once again, guys, this has been, we've had Doug Milton, the CEO of SRT ARMS, and we'll let you get going, Doug. We're going to do a little bit more going out here, but we appreciate it, man. And have a happy, safe, healthy new year, and we'll be in touch.
Got it. Thank you. It's nice talking to all of you.
You
Talk
bet.
to you
Thanks,
later.
Doug.
Later, buddy.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Dude, that's awesome, man.
Why wouldn't he be a chemical engineer?
Yeah, no kidding.
That's what these guys are.
Seriously.
Like Aaron, David,
Seriously.
it's they've got a different brain.
They're too damn smart.
Well, at least he's using his smarts for something badass.
Yeah, no shit.
Yeah.
Not building skyscrapers or something stupid.
That was good.
Yeah, it was. That's awesome. I'm glad that we did that. That's a cool setup. So I mean, there's been a lot of guys that have been wanting to hear
Sure.
who we work with, and that's actually Doug's first podcast. I asked him if he's done it before. I'm like, what? Just an interview. It's just going to be an interview, man.
He did good. He
Oh heck yeah! When
real
you
smooth. He wasn't,
if you know what you're talking about, it's
that's
easy.
just it. It's 100%. I mean, it just flow.
And when we work with guys like that, we learn so much more about it. Like I even learned I'll listen to it again. I learned some stuff there from him. I mean,
I mean, there was way more there than I ever expected to get out of, say a 20-minute interview is what we planned.
And we're at an hour, right? Well, but yeah, about 50 minutes right now.
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
That's solid. That's 50 minutes of dictionary reading information, dude.
that's pure mind blown, just perfect.
Yeah, it is 100%. But I mean, I kind of introduced it that way. We've been working with Doug for well over 10 years. And it's, guys, it gets
just
to the,
like you said, you're not the kind of guy that say, oh, this is the best. This is what it is. This is the one you want.
but that's what I was just going to say.
There's a reason why we run that can, and that is our top choice can.
When we go out,
Might
you're like,
pay
dude,
a little more, but you get what you pay for, in my opinion.
oh yeah.
Just like why you drive a Raptor.
Yeah, it's
but I was going to say the hardest part for me is, and I just did a review of a suppressor, and you guys will see it up on the YouTube channel. I uploaded it to Vimeo privately today, but I'm going to release it on the YouTube channel. And it's tough, but it's not, because we work with certain companies and we can make money. I'm not going to lie, by working with certain companies, but at the same time, we try to continue getting our hands on as much equipment as we possibly can so that we can get more knowledge and more insight with that product.
yeah. Who was to say that can wasn't by far superior than something else?
Exactly. You don't know until you've
unless
tried
you
it.
do it.
And that's what we try to stay away from, guys.
And like you said, you're not the guy that says, "Oh, this is the best," because then you turn around and you're shooting a different can. Well, now you're a hypocrite.
And there's so many guys on TV that do that. I mean, they'll use a product and they'll claim it's the best, and 3 weeks later, 3 months later, 6 months later, a year later on their new show, this is the best because this is who's giving us money.
That's the thing. It's the best, but this is the third can I've shot.
Exactly.
Yeah, maybe it was the best you shot.
Yep. And that's all. And that's what I said in this review. I mean, our goal is to not be a Kool-Aid drinker, not be a fanboy for a certain company. I mean, we work with SRT ARMS. They design an exclusive suppressor, the Vapor series, with us, but that doesn't eliminate us from giving you guys recommendations. And you're like, well, we're not interested in a $1,250 can.
Right.
I've got an $800 budget. Well, here you go. I can tell you, this can sounds loud as hell for $800, or this one sounds relatively good for $800.
There's cans on your shelf that we'll never shoot again in our life.
Exactly.
But I ain't gonna come out and say this guy's can's a piece of shit. Don't buy it.
Yeah. We won't. We don't do that.
No.
We don't say that. It's not a business like way to go about things. But another thing is if guys call us on the phone or talk to us, on email, we will give you insight. And the thing that it really does suck, because guys thrive on bad experiences just as much as they do good. Yeah. And it's tough for us to not go, don't buy that.
I would rather have us be the guys that say, gosh, that's a pile, dude. then say one of your customers come in and buy this can. Now they're mad at you because they bought a can they don't like.
Exactly. In the easiest way to put it is, if you can't afford a $1,250 can, save $400 so you can.
Yeah.
And then you will be happy.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Save for another 6 months.
What do you always say, James? Buy once, cry once.
Exactly. You get what you pay for.
Yep.
You know, you bend over one time and take it.
I always say you can't put a price on fun.
That's true too. That's a good one. I mean, you live one time. I can't justify another 400. Save, man. Save it up. And we're not going to try to tell you what to do. I mean, gosh dang it. But it is. You get what you pay for. We just want to see guys be genuinely happy and content with a purchase.
Exactly. And when it comes to product, say hunting thermals, cans, guns, we've ran enough of them that I can say maybe I don't like that, or maybe I like that better.
Where most guys cannot,
right?
Which is fine, but that's what we're here for. We're like, you know what? We're the guys that some guys can't be, and we want to bring that to the table for you.
Just like the guy was a year ago. The two brothers or the cousins that were in your weight room, and we sat there and listened to them, and they're like, you guys got to tell people about this.
Tell you what, we want to know what.
Why are you wearing those pants?
Yeah,
why are you wearing that shirt? What is this?
He wanted to know what the pants were. He's like, we want to buy those effing pants, and they're not on your website. And I'm like,
I don't want to be the guy that goes out and tries something and don't like it. I want you to do that, and then you tell me what it is that I like.
And that's what we do.
Yeah.
And that's what we don't. But the thing is there's a delicate medium there,
and it's not going to be all of them suck. It's going to be, well, he's wearing that, it must be all right.
Yeah, we can't freak out and go, this is the best, man. You got to use this because this is what we're using.
Right.
There's a bit of delicacy there where you got to go, well, you know, if you can afford this, good. If not, then you can't. But this is what we're going to be. This is how we're going to be stationing. This is how we're going to be molding future podcasts. We're going to get some podcasts where we're just going to be BSing and talking about random junk and throwing F-bombs and being a little bit crazier. But we want to really get into stuff like this where we break it. Like Aaron Davidson, he's going to jump on with this. He's the CEO of Gunworks. We could get Dixon on, Chad.
And you will never see us wearing something or using something because that guy paid us the most money.
Exactly.
Ever.
We have searched out, and I mean, we'll be blunt. I mean, this is a suppressor based podcast here, but there's certain situations where they're like, you know, we made a move to Gunworks last year, and we'll say this again.
Yeah.
But there's guys, so many guys that were butthurt, man. They were so bad. How in the hell are you going to let Gunworks put your name on a $10,000 rifle? Why wouldn't I?
Yeah.
I mean, we worked with Chad at LRI, and he's a good dude. There is not one bad thing I'll say about Chad. His work is better
Top
than
notch.
Amazing.
It's individuality, man. I mean, he goes.
Honestly, if I was picking out a rifle off this shelf to hit a target out there,
it'd be one of his.
I guarantee you it's going to be an LRI.
Yeah, and we've worked with Travis Stevens at TS Customs. We've had
he does good work.
Absolutely.
You know,
those
Gunworks. I mean, top notch.
Here's the deal. So we have Gunworks, and we didn't go to Gunworks because all of a sudden, boom, oh, hey, man, Gunworks must be paying them. Gunworks isn't giving us any deals other than allowing us to design our own rifle and be able to basically be an affiliate with them. That was a tough business decision because I sat back for freaking a month or two, and I'm
Here's what, you were tired of going out. I need an action. I got to go here. I need a barrel. I got to go here. Where Gunworks,
sourcing components, man.
Gunworks is open the box. Here it is.
It's a one-stop shop. They manufacture an action, they manufacture a barrel, they manufacture a different choice of stocks. Which, don't get me wrong, guys, that's one of the most fun and things to do, and we'll continue to do it. Sourcing components, continue to run stuff, but there's a certain point in time where you get diminished returns. You're like,
yes,
I'm on the phone for freaking 20 hours, 50 hours a year, just talking, maybe even more.
And then there's me and John.
Way more than that.
Me and John sitting out in the pickup, ready to go.
Yeah, let's go, dude.
Got our stuff
and
on,
I'm like,
James
hey,
is in here on the phone. It's like, dude,
I'm like, I got to
do that at night, but that's just
you can't. You talk to those guys on the phone, and if you can get them,
it comes a time where it's a job.
Yeah, you got to get you got to hit them on their business hours too.
Yeah, it comes to a point where it's a job.
And
which takes the fun out of it for you because you're the one doing all the legwork.
It is fun to meet new guys and build new relationships, but if it's a no-brainer if you can have, instead of building a Raptor, you can buy one put together.
Yeah.
And there's a price point that comes with it, but if you can do it, and the package is there and it's higher performance, if it's just as high or higher performance than what you've ever used, that's what we have to do.
Yeah.
And the thing about, it's a similar situation. Gunworks is like LRI in a way, but they are on a mass scale. The guys that they have working for them, they have, I had to sit back and think, all right, you got to weigh the pros, you got to weigh the cons. Really not a lot of cons with LRI, but you have Gunworks and I probably shouldn't be talking about it because we'll talk about it in another podcast, but they've got 2 TV shows. They've got one on the Sportsman channel. They got one on the Pursuit channel. They have X amount of Instagram followers. The YouTube channel that they have has over 100,000 subscribers. They're getting into the suppressor industry.
Right, the optics.
Aaron's an engineer in the software that is in the Leica HDBs, and he designed that. He developed that software. Why would I not want to be a part of that spectrum where we don't have to try and work with a company that's like, who are you guys? What do you do? They respect what we do. They like it. They see the content we put out there. We may not kill 1,000 coyotes a year, but they see the footwork, the extra exertion that we put in to try to market high-end equipment to guys that need to have it for their lifestyle. So that's something that it's fun, man. It's awesome to be able to do that stuff and talk to guys like Doug and that way people don't just have to go, that James O'Neill guy's so full of shit. He's just trying to sell us stuff. Listen to Doug. Listen to somebody that's been in the industry for 2 decades or more. Yeah. He was one of the first. He was right up there with some of the first at Gemtech when they came in. I think AAC even. He was right in there when they all started, and he's been around. AAC is purchased by somebody else. Gemtech's purchased by somebody else. Guess what? SRT is still rolling, man.
Yeah, I remember when we first started with SRT, and it might have been a year or 2 afterwards. You were saying he's got to change something. He's got to change his marketing, his something. He's got to push this or he's got to do that. But look at now, 10 years later, and it's
which we're getting a lot of exposure for him. And
right.
You're the one that always said if it's not broke, don't fix it.
There's a reason he's doing what he's doing, same as us.
Yep. And his he explained it all in this podcast for you guys to listen to.
It's a lot of good info.
Solid, badass, good stuff. That's tough to not soak that up and enjoy every minute of it. But what we've done with Doug is we probably should fill in. We've developed. This was literally before guys were getting into caliber specific cans.
You have the exclusive on the vapors, correct?
The vapors, and I got Doug to do it. It was tough, but once he realized, hey man, you know what? These guys are doing this. Absolutely, I do that. And we've got the 224 vapor.
How about the caliber specific? Was he into that, or did you push him to that?
He didn't really want to.
There was no such thing as that.
There was no such thing as a 6 mm. There's really not a 6 mm can. Thunder Beast makes a 6.5 now.
Right.
About a couple years after we were making the 6.5 vapor.
Right.
Everybody, and it's not. Oh, look at what you guys did. Just because you guys did it, everybody. That's not what it is. We just got Doug to do it before. I'm like, there's a designated. There's a position. There's a spot. A void to be filled with caliber specific cans, because if I had a 6 mm, a designated 6 mm that it was my coyote hammer from 0 to 1,000, I'm going to invest $1,200. I'm going to invest $1,500.
When the suppressor market started getting big, everybody's like, "Oh, I'm going to buy a 30 cal and shoot it on all my rifles." Where now everybody's got maybe a couple, maybe 3, 4. So that caliber specific is more apt to intrigue people.
And it's the market that we're hitting, absolutely. The guys that we're hitting are guys that are, I don't want to say it like that. The guys that we're trying to market to will invest that money.
Let's say they're custom guys. Because that's
exactly what they are.
What it is.
That's how I explain Doug's suppressors. It's like a custom rifle versus a factory.
They're not going to buy a caliber specific rifle and then go to Shields and buy a over the counter rifle and put it on there. That's your 30 cal and everything guy. Where I think the caliber specific guys are the custom.
Oh yeah,
they're custom guys.
But even the guys who are like some of our buddies who are just like, hey, I want one can, I'm going to run it on everything.
Yeah.
Now what are they doing? How many people have you sold one can to that came back and went, you know what? I want a caliber specific can now. Right. Now they're getting into it.
And maybe even not as caliber specific, but a 30 cal and a 20 cal.
Which for them is caliber specific.
True.
They've got a 300 Win Mag and AR and that's it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
just like anything. It's changing. I mean, it's
the NFA industry was crazy, man. If I would have got into it, well, I've been in it during the spike, but if a guy really would have stuck your neck out where I wasn't
been a
there,
rich man about
oh,
now,
you could have made bank.
Yeah.
I mean, there's guys that are direct competitors that I'm doing a legit review for right now that you'll see on YouTube that the dude's helped with the NFA industry immensely. He's changed rules. He's changed regulations. Yep. That's respect. I don't care. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there, and we don't like to badmouth anybody just because what we use.
Some guy's willing to put his neck out there and do some legwork. I mean,
absolutely.
You gotta,
more power to him.
Yeah, heck yeah.
More respect for that.
Yeah.
I will acknowledge that and respect that every day of the year, man.
Yeah, I mean, that's helping him out, but it's helping everybody else out too.
Yeah.
And when exactly. I mean, we've worked with SRT ARMS on the vapor line. We've got designated caliber specific cans exclusive, the 224 vapor. That's a 1.5 outside diameter, 8 inches long. We've got the 6 millimeter vapor. We've got the 6.5. We've got that 7 millimeter vapor. And then Doug opted out. I tried to get him to do a custom 30 cal can. He's like, no, dude. He goes, if somebody wants a 30 cal can, they're going to go with the Shadow X LTI because that's the best can I can make for that caliber. I'm like, all right, man, got you.
He's a chemical engineer. Why wouldn't he know that?
I didn't, you know what? He probably told me that, and I didn't even. When you're like, okay, forgot about that.
James asked him if he knows something. He's like, well,
fluid dynamics, Doug.
I'm a chemical engineer. I was like, duh.
Oh, it was Stellite versus Inconel.
Like, he's like, yeah, I'm a chemical engineer. I've heard of that.
Of course, I know the difference.
Come on, ops.
You know better than that, dude.
Together,
Come on.
man.
Ask him a hard question.
Yeah. Where you been? He's known that 2 years before you even knew it.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
But that's awesome, man. That's
good
cool.
Time. It was good. That was awesome. I'm glad we did that.
Oh, hell yeah. That was probably the most fun, one of the most fun podcasts.
We've had that scheduled for about 3 weeks now, and it just didn't work out right. And I had somebody ask me just the other day, what's up with the can, podcast? Where's the silent, So I was like, well, it got put back a couple times, but
Doug's been, I mean, busy, and then he was doing some gun shows.
He goes to the office every day. Yeah. He doesn't.
He told
have
us
other
that
people doing his stuff.
He said by the time it was 2 weeks ago, he was hoarse because he was on the phone all day talking.
Yeah. That's why he wouldn't do it that one time because he'd been talking all day. So,
and I called him today. I'm like, this dude, Doug, let's knock this out, man. And we had him for a good 45 minutes, and it was solid. Everything that I wanted to cover, we covered.
Yeah, it was good.
And then some.
Yeah, plus some.
Yeah.
So that's all. That's what we plan on doing with a thermal night vision, more suppressors.
Yeah, we got guys. Gun builders that can do that. We got the thermal guys that can do that. Same thing. We'll
break it down.
Blow some minds.
Tyler will blow someone's mind.
Yeah, we'll get him on. And what I want to do is get him up here and do a hunt with us, and then have him sit down.
He usually comes up every year, but I don't know what's gonna. Hasn't recovered from last year freezing his ass off.
Still cold.
He's still got
Tyler,
the scars from frostbite on his. Yeah, no kidding.
Tyler, if you get frostbite, we're cutting your ponytail off. Bring it on, buddy.
We got a whole box of hand warmers right there ready to go hot for you, dude.
Yeah, he had him taped on his toes. He had them everywhere, man.
I forgot about that.
Remember, he would say, he wouldn't tell us he was cold because he didn't want us to make fun of him. It was chilly, too. Dude. It was like 35 degrees. No, it was cold.
Below.
Yeah, it was cold.
Yeah, no shit.
But yeah, we'll get him back on here. Aaron Davidson's going to get on.
That'll be a good one. What we got to do is that one worked out good with Doug because suppressors is something that we have a lot of experience in regarding usage, not the manufacturing process. But
and I think a lot of the followers on the YouTube,
they know.
They got the suppressor guys.
They know. That's what jump started us, man. We had guys that I mean, in the beginning, you'll hear it on our first podcast, second, probably all of them. It's stupid not to run one if you can. Yeah. It's just the advantages that you get with the suppressor. And there was guys that literally, they didn't know. They were telling us that it was illegal because they didn't know the rules. They didn't know the regulations.
Well, just like the story you were telling us the other day. The sheriff. You don't remember?
Uncle Dwayne and Dad.
Yeah. Some guy drove by on the road and said, hey, these guys have he didn't know suppressors were legal 100% if you do the proper documentation, the proper paperwork. But that's what we should have we could do a whole podcast on NFA regulations, 1934.
You know more than that. then then I would,
we could do, what we should do is do a whole process of what it takes. There's guys that I get guys almost every week that say, hey man, I want to get a suppressor. What do I got to do? It's not that hard. The way that I learned is, it's kind of like learning how to swim. Somebody throws you in a damn lake and expects you to swim to shore. That's what this guy did for my first suppressor. He handed me 2 blank Form 4s and said, go fill them out, figure it out, dude. And so I did. And that was before you could Google that shit on the internet.
2 weeks later, the ATF pounded on his door.
Yeah. Hey, dude.
What do you got going on here, bro?
But we got the paperwork done, and I remember the first can. We'll go into detail on that too, but that'll be for a different one. So I don't know. That was a fun one. That was pretty cool. I hope you guys are enjoying it. What you guys have anything to put? What we should do that reminded me of that is we might do sometime is just do a live Instagram, dude. Put our phones up here, go straight up Instagram, go live, and then
Q&A.
Yeah, exactly. Guys ask us questions, and we could be reading them. And the ones that we want, there's gonna be a plethora of questions.
A plethora. I like it.
That'll be phenomenal.
But we'll do some questions, answers, and if guys, we're not gonna. Maybe we could try to go to all of them, but there's gonna be popping up, going away, and crazy stuff that we probably will bypass.
Or nobody will even chime in.
If they want to ask us how many,
I'll chime in if nobody does.
Start asking questions.
Hey, Abby, James needs a question. Text him one.
Oh, I can imagine what Abby would throw out there.
we might just have to go over some of our.
Anyways,
all right,
wrap it up, officer.
An hour and 15 minutes. That's plenty long. We're starting to rag it on here. Yeah. We're just starting to drag it on. We got to get our thermals geared up.
Recon 2 just went hot.
Did it really?
Crow.
I was gonna guess an eagle.
Funny, dude.
Recon 2 is a game cam we have on
you know what?
A specific area.
You need to write it down. I need to write it down.
Kill box.
What we're gonna start doing is advertising for the guys that we're affiliates with because we use their stuff. Let's close it on that. All right. This is something we got a new company that we're working with, guys.
I think there's a mountain lion on that bite on the bait. Recon 2.
Because it's emptied out.
No, it's big. Might be wolf.
We better go check the tracks. So what recons are, guys, is it's
turkey.
It's probably a blurred picture, but we've got a new company that we're working with called Barn Owl. They are it's a rancher based company.
We'll go there later.
They manufacture cellular cameras. Okay, so what we do is we set these cameras up over our bait piles, and the initial concept was he wanted to set them up over tanks, stock tanks, so guys didn't have to drive 10, 20, for me, 40 miles to check tanks. Set them up over tanks.
That's why they came up with the idea.
That's what he did, yeah. Which is, think about it. How
that saves you money.
Dude, you check your phone. You might pay $5 a month for your service, $7 a month.
Yeah,
the initial cost of the
you can't even do that for that
not
much
even
gas.
The depreciation on your rig,
let alone
your fuel,
your time.
You check all right, you know what? There's water here, here, and here, and you're done. That's what his initial concept was. Well, we kind of took it to a different level this time of year. We got it over bait piles. So anytime there's kind of a movement, we'll set a window where it starts triggering about this time, and then it ends at about sunup so that we can see what's going on. And what we got going on is they are cellular cameras. We can see when the coyotes are coming in, when they give us a buzz, when they give us a notification.
Sends it right to the phone. Yeah.
And you can't really pattern coyotes. Some guys say you can, but here it's getting really, really chaotic. It's getting crazy the time that they're coming in. But so we got the Barn Owl cams
now, so we got to go.
We got this company that we're working with, and we've got a promo code if you guys want to get a discount or you want to help support us. That's awesome. The same thing with a lot of the other companies that we're working with. You use promo code OPSRECON. OPS space RECON. Ops Recon. Use that promo code and you guys can get a deal with the Barn Owl cameras, and you can be just like us and set these cameras up over your bait piles. You don't have to go out there and sit and wait for your phone to ring you.
You're making it sound like we're getting old and lazy.
Hey, it's all about evolution.
Technology, my man. Technology.
Exactly. I mean, if I could get muscles without having to lift weights, I would.
Liar.
Anyway, guys, that's
it's been fun.
Hell yeah.
It's been real boring.
We got a lot of information out there, but man, like I said, fellas, hey, we
Time to go. My bank's empty.
we just passed, I got about this much. We just surpassed right at Christmas 50,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. And that's humbling as hell to us, guys, that we're getting to that point. My goal has always been 100,000 subscribers. And with the content that we have planned on getting out there, I think we'll get there a lot sooner than it took us to get to 50,000. And we want to keep growing it. We want to keep informing you guys, bringing you guys a lot of content. We hope that you're enjoying it. If you guys have
Give us
any
feedback.
Yeah, exactly. If you guys have any feedback, if you
It
guys
don't have to be good either. Let us know how dumb we are.
or any
Especially key.
who cares if it's negative criticism,
Yeah, we'll take it all.
constructive
We'll take it all.
criticism. But we're going to try to get some, if you guys have any recommendations on some high end, some dudes that we could get on the podcast to bring some more insight to you guys, absolutely. Check us out on Facebook, the O'Neill Ops Facebook page, the Instagram page, of course, the YouTube channel. What's your Instagram?
Ops_pro staff.
O'Neill Ops _pro staffer.
Once again, guys, I'm James O'Neill, and this has been the O'Neill Ops Podcast with Doug Melton at SRT ARMS as the host today, as the special guest, I should say, today. We're going to go hammer some coyotes.
Let's go make something
It's
dead.
time.
We're out.